This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. In this video, we're making one of our 3D cakes. We're doing a beautiful chrysanthemum design. The video is going to be broken down into steps, so you can skip ahead, rewatch, and rewind as desired. So let's start mixing the colors for our cakes. We're using American Style Buttercream and the following liquid gel colors: Neon Bright Pink, Red, Violet, Lemon Yellow, Coal Black, and finally some Royal Blue. I'm going to start by making my kind of light green color that I'm going to use to cover the outside of my cake. So I'm just going to start with some buttercream in the bowl. I don't need much because it's just a 4-inch cake, and just a few specks of that yellow. Just going to do one very tiny one of my blue and a very tiny one of my black. Give it a mix around, and I want to make just kind of like a barely there color because I'm going to make a darker green that's going to go on top of this, and I want it to feel almost a little bit yellowish, so have that nice kind of citrusy feel and vibe to it. But I don't want it to be too bright. So I just added a tiny speck of black because that lemon yellow can get pretty intense and almost electric-ish. And I think that's nice. It's kind of like a nice light, almost celery color. I'm just going to add one more speck of that yellow, just to bring it towards the yellow, just a little more. And I think that is going to be perfect. Next, we're going to make a darker green, and this is going to be for leaves and stems. So we got just a little bit in the bowl, and we're going to use drops this time. First of our royal. I just got 2 in there. 2 or 3 should probably do it. And then I'm going to do 1 of my lemon. So you'll notice this color is going to be more blue than yellow, so the opposite of the one we did before. And I'm just going to give it a couple of healthy specks of that black, because I want it to have a nice, dark, deep feeling to it. We'll give it a mix and see where we're at. See if we need to add a little more color, if this is good. But really, we want to make a color that really stands out against that citrusy one that we did and is really different from it. So we want to make the green kind of drastically different. I think that looks nice. Might just be a little on the blue side for me. It's almost a little bit tealish right now. So I'm just going to add a little bit of lemon, just use my toothpick just to control it a little more. I don't really want like a whole drop. And just a little bit more of that black. So I want kind of almost like a forest shade, but not too intense. So maybe what you would call like a fir green or pine green. So think of pine trees and fir trees. And I think that is going to be fantastic. And it's really going to show up against that light kind of citrusy pale green that we made. So for our last color, we're going to make purple. And I'm actually going to make one color and then use it to make a second shade. So I'm going to start out making my darker color. And I'm just going to start with some purple. So a couple of drops of that violet, probably 3 or 4. Couple of pink. And then I'm just going to give it 1 of my red. I want to make a nice intense shade of purple. And I like where this is going. I think I just want to deepen it just a tiny bit. So I'm going to do 2 more purple, another pink, and another red. I'm not looking for an exact shade, so I'm not worried that my pink squeaked out an extra little drop there. Beautiful, right? So I have a nice, intense, really beautiful kind of grapey purple. I would say it's like a jewel tone, kind of plum color. It's really, really nice. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit of that and put it over to one side. And then I'm going to grab myself a little extra scoop of white and mix that in. So just have a little extra white, and I'm just going to do a little light shade of the same color. There we go. So now we have our two shades of purple, and I'll load this one into one bag and this one into the other, and we can use it to make slightly lighter centers. So it's going to give us a nice effect on our flowers. We're going to use 3 bags for this project, and I fitted them all with couplers because I know I'm going to want to change tips on some of them, and I might on the third one, so just in case. So the first one has our lighter purple in it, and we have that fitted with a number 2 tip, so just a small round tip. The second has our darker purple. We currently have it fitted with a number 12 tip, which is a nice large round tip, and we're also going to use it with an 81. So this one is a curved kind of U-shaped opening, so it's a little arc shape. We're going to use that to make those beautiful little cupped petals. And finally, our green. We have our dark green in a bag, and it's fitted with a number 5 tip to start with. And we're also going to use it with a 104 to make some leaves. So let's get our light green color on our cake. We have a 4-inch round cake that we've already filled and iced with a nice layer of white frosting, and you can see it's nice and smooth. And we're just going to put on a little light layer of our colored buttercream. We're just going to add a pop of vibrant color to the background and help our flowers and our stems stand out. So just a nice glob on top, and just like we would when we're regularly icing our cake, we're just going to press that out. Work it out nice and easy and slow into a thin, smooth layer, and then go over the sides. And we just want to make sure we get a nice, even coating of that color without any real show through of the white. Although with this color, because it's so light, you probably won't even notice it if you have a little bit of a thin spot. So just load up your spatula and keep working until you've got it all covered. I'm just going to go back, check for thin spots, fill in any spaces, any little bits that need an extra little bit of color, or maybe just have a little low spot or a dip. And then we're going to give it a pass with our bench scraper and our bowl scraper. To help smooth and even things out, give us those nice, beautiful straight sides. And once we do that, you can see it's looking really lovely. And we can go ahead and just gently remove any excess from the top. Just want a nice, gentle sweeping motion towards yourself. I always keep my spatula at a little bit of an angle. That allows it to really pick up that rim of frosting on the top. And there you can see we have a nice smooth application of that green buttercream really quickly. And we're going to let it set up, chill a little bit, shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes, and we can put our flowers on. So before we get started working on our cake and piping our flowers, let's talk a little bit about the different techniques that we're going to use both on our cake, piping directly on it, and to create our flowers. So we'll start with our dark green and our number 5. We're going to do some lines that are going to be our stems. And instead of holding the bag like we normally would straight up and down as if we were piping on the top of a cake, we're going to hold it at a 45-degree angle. And we're just going to start our line like we normally would, touch down, start squeezing, let it connect, and then instead of picking way up, we're just gonna hover right above that surface, letting it connect and giving us control. So it's one of those things where you're just picking up the bag enough that the frosting flows freely out, but you're almost lightly scraping the edge of that tip against the surface. And if it feels funny to pull actually away from the cake and you feel like you're losing control, just let it drag lightly on the surface, kind of barely skimming and touching, and that'll allow you to still get a nice smooth line, and it'll make sure that it's sticking to the side of the cake. We're also going to use this number 5 to do some sepals, and to do that, we're just going to pull spikes. So 45-degree angle and let it build up, and then pull away on that 45, right? Or pull away flat, so just gliding along the surface. And this is going to allow us to create a variety of different spikes. We can go different directions and create sepals underneath our flowers that'll also provide connection to attach those flowers to the cake. I'm going to change my bag to my 104 tip, and we'll practice our little leaves. So for these, we're going to make the center of the leaf with the fat end, and the skinny end is going to draw the outside. So we want to make, here we go, little segmented sections like so. And that's going to give us a leaf with multiple parts, right? And it's going to be a little different than your traditional leaf, and it's also going to allow you to make it bigger than what you would do with, say, a number 352 tip. So we can actually take up some surface area on the side of the cake, give them those nice segmented look, and you can see the fat end meeting up at the center almost gives it a vein to the center of each of those pieces of the leaf. So we can use that to create some nice color on the side and some nice contrast to the purple and the light green, which is going to be fantastic. For our flower parts, it's going to be dots, lines that are a little different. Instead of laying down, they're going to be straight up, so they're kind of almost like pillars. And finally, our petals, which are essentially spikes with our number 81 tip. So to start with, we've got our number 12 tip for a dot, and we're just going to hold it straight up and down, let it balloon out, and circle it around when we want to end it. And this is going to make the base for our flowers. We're going to be piping this on our flower nail, and then we'll do some smaller ones actually on the side of our cake to create some kind of little buds, and we'll probably also do some half blossoms on our nail as well. For that number 2 tip, we're going to use it to create those pillars. And this one, rather than pulling away quickly like you would with a spike, we'll start at the same, squeeze, let the frosting touch. We're just going to pull up slowly until we get a nice spike and then end it. And it's probably hard to see from this distance, but you can see that gives us a nice little pillar there that stands up straight. And when we combo them all together, they're going to make a nice, strong little structure. So we're going to pipe a whole bunch of those in the center of our flower. And finally, I'm going to change over to my 81 tip. And we'll talk about our petals. So the important part here is that we're going to hold it 45-degree angle. We want that U kind of cupped upwards. And we want to let the frosting connect, build up a connection, and then pull a spike. And because of how we're going to build our flowers, it's going to allow us to create really long, dramatic, beautiful petals. But you can see it needs that buildup at the bottom to create an attachment to give it structure. And then when we pull away, we're going to get that nice tapered tip to it. And that's how we're going to create the petals for our chrysanthemum. We're going to do a few different things with the bag as we pipe to create that nice characteristic look of those beautiful kind of wild flowers. So let's talk about how we use those techniques we just went over to build our blossoms. So for our chrysanthemums, we want to pipe a nice large dot. So we're going to use our number 12 tip. The second thing we're going to do is pipe those spikes in the middle. So with our lighter color and our number 2 tip. And I'm going to do one in the center, do a whole bunch around it. So I create a nice little clump. And those are those smaller petals that are the inside that haven't quite opened out yet, haven't unfurled yet. And then we're going to switch to our 81 and we're going to do a few different things with this bag. So we're going to hold it at the same 45-degree angle always. But for the first row, we're going to start right underneath the base of those spikes, pull, and as we go up, we're going to curve towards the center and pull across to end it. And that'll create some petals that are kind of enclosing that center area. For our second row, we're going to move down underneath the first, starting against that base a little bit lower, and we're going to pull kind of almost straight up out. You can even go a little towards the center, and essentially what we want to do is change that angle from curving in to pulling straight up to gently going out as we go down to create a flower that opens up. And you can use this to create big, beautiful, open, wild-looking blossoms with these great kind of little tendril, frilly petals that come off, and it looks fantastic. And the main thing we want to do with our 81 tip is we always want to be close to the row before it. So we want to be right there nestled against them, and that's going to give those fragile petals support. So as I start doing those second, third, and continual rows, it might take 4 or 5, I'm going to go right against the back of the one before and pull up against it and then away just at the end. And that's going to give us support. So the petals that come before the center, it's all going to connect together in here where your eye doesn't really see it, and just the end parts are kind of pulling away, and that's going to give you that drama that you're looking for with these beautiful chrysanthemums. So we're going to use this to create big whole ones, and then I'm going to do some where I pipe the dot smaller, do the center, and just do the first few rows with maybe just one coming out. And that'll give us some smaller, tighter blossoms that are kind of like half open ones. So we'll create some big ones and also some half open ones on our nail. We've talked about our techniques and how we're putting them together, so let's get started and practice on our flower nail. And I'm going to start with a full one. So I'm going to go with my number 12 tip, pipe a nice large dot, finish it off, and before I go into my other steps and my other petals, I'm just going to change the tip on my bag over to my 81 so that I have it ready to go. And then first I'm going to pick up my bag that has my light purple in it and my number 2, and I'm just going to start here in the middle, pull a nice line straight up, so give myself a nice little pillar, and then just work all the way around it. And I just want to fill up that center with nice short little lines. I just want to have a change of color right here in the center. So I used a little light purple. Now, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start with that 81 tip right at the base, right underneath those little pillars, and I'm going to pull up and flick it over, right? So slowly, and then when you want to end it, just a nice little flick with your wrist right across the center. And some will overlap more and some less. And the more spikes you do in the center, the more of that you'll have exposed at the end, right? Because there'll be more area to cover up. So with my second row, I'm just going to go in between 2 of my petals before, and I might just curve it over just a little bit as well. And I think with my third row, I'll start pulling out. Okay, So once I've done a couple of those, third row in between two petals, and just a little bit of a flick out. And you can see I'm already starting to build that characteristic chrysanthemum shape. And I'm just gliding along the back of the petals before it and pulling out right as I meet that kind of change in direction. So where they start to curve in, I'm then pulling away just a little bit. So I'm going to do the same thing with my fourth row. Just pull out a little bit sooner, a little bit more of an angle. And you can see as you build up successive layers, you're going to be able to pull those petals away just a little more. And if you get any that are too wild, have just a little bit too much drama or flair, you can just kind of gently remove any excess with the tip if you need to. It's actually pretty easy to correct. And you can see that gives us a beautiful chrysanthemum. I'm going to keep going, make this base nice and stable. Give us lots of petals. Some of them are going to stick straight out, some of them are going to flop over. That's going to be the beauty of it. Don't try and do it too static, too everything the same. If some of them just kind of droop over on you, that's actually going to look really, really beautiful. So you can see that gives us a lovely, beautiful, open, full chrysanthemum. Now that we've created one of these, we're going to do one that's just a little bit smaller, so we're kind of stop when we have this little inner part. So we've made a full blossom. Let's make ourselves a half one as well. So this one is just starting to open, but isn't fully open, so not as big. So I'm going to start out same dot, just a little bit smaller and a little less height to it. I'm going to change my tip over to my 81. And then I'm going to grab my number 2 and do the same little pillars in the center. So start with one in the center and then go all the way around. And they'll end up kind of supporting each other. And then we'll change over to our 81, and just like we did before, we're going to enclose this little center. So start right at the base, pull, and flick across. And I'm going to do the second row, curving in just a little bit as well. When I get to my third row, I'm just going to start pulling out, and I'm not going to really do more than 4 rows on this, and I want to keep it kind of really tight to the center. So I don't want to pull out too much, I don't want to do too much flare, I just want it to look like a flower that's just starting to open up. So you can see I'm almost all the way down. So I'm just going to start all the way down the side and pull up, right? So just a little bit. This is going to help finish it off. Give us a nice look to those bases. Give it a great shape. And you can see then we have a nice tight looking chrysanthemum. Those are going to look great next to those really full open ones. So our chrysanthemum flowers that we piped are chilling in the refrigerator, and we're going to start getting our cake ready. So I just want to think about where I want to place those larger chrysanthemums and the half open ones, probably close to the top and a little bit on the top, just kind of angled towards the outside so there's a nice presentation. So let's just draw some nice little lines with a toothpick or a skewer or something just to give yourself an idea of where you want to pipe the lines and give yourself a guide to follow. And I'm probably going to do little groupings of 3 for where I want my large, medium, and I'll do some little buds. And I want to leave some areas to do some leaves on the side as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark these. I want to kind of divide this cake into thirds. So I just want to think about where I'm placing them. So I get kind of like equidistant apart with those large ones. That way they have enough space. Fantastic. And then I'm going to go in with my number 5 tip, put on the stems, I'll put on some leaves, and then I'll start working on some of the sepals and placing some of my blossoms. So we just want to get our number 5 tip on there. And we're going to think about the cake as the surface that we're piping on, right? Because we're going directly on it. And I'm going to hold the bag at a 45-degree angle. And because I'm pulling up, you'll notice that the back end of the bag is out towards almost my forehead, right? And I'm just going to glide right there, right on the surface. So just barely grazing, kind of touching the surface. And that's going to give me a nice smooth line, right? So I'm just ever so slightly up off of it, just kind of just barely touching it with the back edge of that tip. And that's going to give me a nice, beautiful, smooth line. I'm going to start my second stem coming out of the first one. And then my third one going off the other direction. Gorgeous. You can see that gives us a beautiful clean line for those lovely stems. And I'm going to change over to my 104 and put in some nice little leaves. So you can work on these however you need to. Sometimes it requires odd angles because we're piping directly on the cake. If it's easier, you can even pipe these flat on a tray, let them chill, and then peel them off and apply them to the cake. So if that's a little easier, go ahead and do that. But I kind of like the organic feeling in nature and the ability to just put them in wherever I need or want to. So I just want to get some of this dark green down here at the bottom and do some nice leaves. So we're just going to use our imagination and start putting in some of those little leaves down here. And just use whatever angle you need to get them in place and looking nice, right? So beautiful. And I'll do a smaller one off over on this side, probably only 3 segments since it's a smaller area. Gorgeous. And just give it a little extra bit of buttercream so it connects. So there we have a nice little setup for a trio of chrysanthemums. I'm going to continue piping around the rest of my cake, do the rest of my stems, get my leaves in place, and then we'll pull out our blossoms, place our large and medium ones, and pipe some small ones. So we've got our stems and our leaves on our cake all the way around. You can see I added a nice little third one up there where I had some open space. So just do whatever feels nice and whatever feels natural for you, and then you'll be ready to start working on actually applying your blossoms. And we're going to start with the big one. I want to get that on there so I kind of have a good sense of how we need to place the other ones to take up the space and not have things too close together, because you don't want to put on your other flowers and then realize you don't quite have enough room for that last big blossom. So I want to think about where I want to put it and give myself kind of a nice little stage. So I'm giving myself a big dot of that green just to kind of build it up and give it something to rest on so it can be at a kind of nice 45-degree angle. And then I'm just going to do some little spikes coming off the bottom, just to give it something else to attach to, give it a look like some nice little sepals, nice and kind of hairy, and just kind of soft. And then I'm just gonna peel my little chrysanthemums off my backing and place them gently there at a nice little angle. And you can see then I've got some green peeking out from underneath. And I've got that lovely purple going on top. And I've got it so that it's pretty much lined up with the top edge of that cake. So if I need to, in any spot, just come underneath and put more green under there just to make sure that things connect and are supported. It can be hard to judge exactly how much you need and how big you have to go. So it's always easier to go back after you've got it on there and just add a little extra. And that fills in that backspace visually and also gives it some support. And so then I'm just gonna go in underneath as well and put on some more green just to keep things in place and make sure that we are nice and sturdy. So I'm gonna put a nice little half blossom over here. So I just wanna move it out just a little bit from where that stem is, and we're gonna angle it off this way. And I just want to make sure that it's nice and supported. So I just want to really make sure that I have a nice kind of little bed of green going on there. I'm just going to take a nice little fern blossom and place it on. Just get it in there however you want to, however you need to. You can see it's important because these are so big, even the half ones, to really make sure that you have some space in between anything that's going to be up here at the top. And we really want to make sure that we're bracing it, giving it a good connection. And it has some support because we don't want it to go slip sliding around on us. So that's looking fantastic. And I'm just gonna go in here and put in a nice little bud. So I've got my bag of light purple. I ended up adding a little bit of my extra light green to it. I like the way the two colors kind of mix together in the bag, and it gave me a little extra that I need to do this little bit of piping. So I'm gonna actually use this bag to pipe a little ball. So just nice and tiny, just build up a little area. And I'm just gonna cover what would be the top edge with some little dots. And then start pulling some little lines across those. So it looks nice and hairy. And then I'm gonna take my bag with my 81 tip. I'm going to do essentially what I did on the side of my dot on top of my nail is I'm going to start underneath those lines and pull up and over. And this is going to give me the look of a bud. And I'm going to have to spin my cake this way to do it. Otherwise, it won't be able to get the angle. But I just want to kind of enclose that a little bit while keeping a nice tight base. So you can see little petals overlapping it. And this is just going to give me a quick little bud on the side of my cake. Once I've got that on there, I'm just going to go do some small little spikes right underneath just to finish it off, help secure things. But you can see that we have a nice little trio of chrysanthemums, big open one, half one, and a nice little bud. And I might not put on too many of the half ones. I might just leave it mostly the large ones. We'll see. I'm going to keep placing these on and we'll come back and show you the finished cake. So as you can see, we've completed our little design and we went around and we piped some small buds where we needed them. I even piped some smaller ones up top too, just because I started to run out of space. The chrysanthemums are really big and beautiful and bold and open. So I ended up just using one of those half ones that I piped on the nail and piping the rest as just slightly larger buds. And it looks lovely. You get that nice bold contrast between the lighter citrusy green and those darker greens and purples. And we get that little pop of lighter color in the center, which is fantastic. And you can see you've got nice open areas and just some great spots to pop in some leaves. And it makes a very beautiful, elegant design. You can do it in any variety of color combinations. Chrysanthemums come in a million colors in nature. So it's really something gorgeous that you can really customize for just about any occasion. And they're beautiful flowers. They look super hard, but really it's just a few simple techniques and letting them get kind of wild when you pull those petals, especially on the outside. And that'll give you a lovely, frilly, elegant look to your cakes. We hope you enjoyed this video and our in-depth 3D chrysanthemum cake tutorial. And if you like it, we hope you'll check out some of the other videos in our flower series, like our in-depth tutorial on piping chrysanthemums. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like more about the cake decorating materials and equipment we use, or just some inspirational videos about cake decorating itself, you can follow us on Insta or YouTube at Cake Decorating School. If you'd like to know more about yearly membership and what it entails, you can go to www.cakedecoratingschool.com for more information. And if you're interested in these products, you can check the links in the description.